Right, now in this video I'm going to talk about what I think is a feasible fantasy weapon. I have no evidence whatsoever that this sort of weapon ever existed in reality. I made this weapon up actually while I was playing the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Enemy Within campaign, and I was playing a hobbit. And I think perhaps this weapon is particularly suited to a very short person, but to a taller person it would it could still prove pretty handy. Now, what it is a combination of weapons for dealing with opponents from different ranges, and also for making yourself perhaps look not very threatening when in fact you're quite well armed. So the first thing we have is a stick. Now, if you're a traveller making your way around the countryside, you don't necessarily want to look like an adventurer, because adventurers, well, that's clearly a disreputable occupation. So this could just look like your ordinary staff for leaning on. Perhaps you have your luggage over your shoulder like that. You could look like a tinker. Your wares are hanging from it, or it's oh, I'm but an old man, I need it for walking or whatever. It's just your general stick. It's just a stick. But of course, a stick is a quarterstaff, isn't it? And in skilled hands, a quarterstaff is a very effective weapon. But there's more to it than that, because this end, you see, is actually a sling. You could disguise the hook. Perhaps this sling bit could be over the hook, or the hook could be used for holding some of your luggage that you have over your shoulder, so it's not obvious that what you're carrying is a staff sling. A staff sling is a very effective weapon, as long as your enemies are not too close. And this, you can see, unravels, and hey presto, you've got yourself your staff sling. So you can put your big stone in that, and with the rest of it as the staff, boom, you've got a staff sling. Okay, what else have you got here? Well, in your belt you've got a knife. Now, it's perfectly common for a person to carry a knife. There's nothing unusual in that. But there is something a little bit unusual about the knife that you've got. You see, essentially a spearhead is like a dagger, isn't it? It's like a knife. Now, this spearhead was made for reenactment, so it's blunt. But you can see that essentially it's a pointy bit with a handle. Now, the handle, admittedly, is a socket with a little hole in it, and but that's still a perfectly strong thing to hold a knife by. It's every bit as strong, if not stronger, than a tang. And you could have a little bar across here to stop your hand slipping onto the blade, or these bits of the bottom bits of the blade could be blunt anyway, so that wouldn't matter. And you can imagine a longer spearhead. Spearheads are sometimes very long, coming to a definite point, and you've got a pretty handy dagger, and that could be in your belt, looking just like an ordinary knife or dagger, and you draw it, and then the other end of your staff, you could have it whittled to take this. I mean, obviously this doesn't. You'd have it whittled such that it came nice way up the socket, and that would be on pretty firmly. And that little dangly decorative thing on the handle of your knife, what's that for? Well, that little stick on the end of the little bit of thong, that goes through that little peg there to hold it on. So you've got a perfectly handy spear now. So your stick has become a spear, and you can very quickly pull that out, and you've now got a dagger and a quarterstaff, and if they start running away, you can get your stones out, and you've got a staff sling as well. Could work.